Hello there, how are you today? Let's continue from where we left off. So we talked about indexing, we've talked about slicing, I've explained a couple of things about them. And the last time we saw something you should take note of when working with index and slicing. And we said that if what you have here is out of range, you get this error that tells you string index out of range, right? But if you're slicing, that doesn't matter. Today, what we want to talk about is this word, and perhaps you've heard that strings are immutable. And so that might seem like a big word, right? What does it mean when it says Python strings are immutable? What it means in simple terms is that Python strings cannot be changed. And what that means is that assigning to an index position in the string will result in an error. So what do I mean by that? So let's say you want to change this P to J, and we have that Python, and so let's say now we have another thing called Jython, and we want to change that P to J. Now, one thing you would think of is since we can extract the first word, right? Since we can extract the first word, the first character, we can say, okay, the first character should be J, right? Now, this is going to result in an error. And the reason is simply because once strings are created like this, you cannot change them. And that's just what it means. And as you can see, even without, let's see what we have here. It says class str does not define set item. In other words, what this essentially means is that so the operator cannot be used on its instance. And so what this means is that you can't, in simple terms, just means that you cannot do this. You can't perform this operation of initialization on this string like this. So you might then be asking, and let me run this so you see, okay, let me get rid of this error, and so we can have just that. And you can see it says str does not support item assignment. And that's just what it means, that strings are immutable. So if you want to really do this, one way to do that would be to create a new one. And so you might be wondering, okay, so how do I go about that? Now, this is not going to be a problem if you say, for instance, J. So let's say new word equal to J plus. Now, we already talked about slicing. And so if we want to exclude this first index and just go with this second index all the way through the end, if you've not forgotten by now, what we can do is to have, of course, this is 0, index 0, and this is index 1. And so we can say we want 1 all the way to the end. And so that cuts off the P. And now we have J here. We are concatenating it. We are concatenating it with this result we have here. And so if we print out the new word now, what we should have is Jython and not Python. Let me get rid of this because that's going to give us an error. So let's see what we have here. This becomes Jython, right? So that's one thing we can do to this. And so let's say, for instance, again, we want to have the word py. How can we print this out using what we already know and what we already have? If you look at this, we have this py at the beginning, which is this, right? And then we have, we want to add py to it. Again, how do we go about this? We can say new word is what's the way to slice this? If you can still remember, we can do 0 through what? 2. Of course, 2 means that we're not including 2. And since we are starting at 0, we can safely ignore what's at the beginning and just say that go all the way to, but not including index 2. And we want to add at the end of that pi. And so if we print this out, and I'm going to bring this, copy this over to this place, and I will comment this out. I'll print this out, and let's see what we have here. We have pi, just as we have here. Now, strings have built-in functions, and one built-in function that you will probably use a lot of times is the len. By len, I mean this. And what this does is that it just helps you to know it returns the length of a string. len, and then the parenthesis returns the length of a string. And so let's say we have a string s that is called super, and this is just something expiladocious. Now, this is not a word that actually more like exists, but this is the word we have. And if I say, give me the length of this character, all you need to do is just to do print len of s. And so printing the length of s is like saying, give me the length of that character of the string stored in variable s. So if we print this out, we have 34. And let me comment this out again so that we can have just a single output. And we have 34 there. And this here are the most essential things you need to know about strings in Python. And in the next class, we'll head over to lists. And we'll talk about lists, and you will see in lists, you will see how this slicing comes to play as well in lists. And that's what we'll be looking at in the next video. Thank you for sticking with me, and I hope you subscribed by now. If you haven't, please do so. If you haven't shared this video with others, kindly do so. It's geared toward absolute beginners, and it's gonna be project-based, but basically what we're doing is to explore the Python documentation together so that we can have something to fall back on when we want to learn Python and how to use it well. So thank you, and I hope you subscribe and share the video, and please give the video a thumb up if you find it helpful and you would like to suggest it to others. Thank you. Have a great day. Bye.